Whenever we think about time in our daily lives, there's this underlying assumption of, I don't know, absolute rigid precision.
Right, like it's just pure engineering.
Exactly. You glance at your phone, the digits flip from 10 to 1001, and you just accept it as a universal fact. I
Yeah.
mean, it feels binary, it's clean, and it's a measurement that happens completely independent of us.
Yeah, it acts as this very comforting, invisible scaffolding for us. We use that digital measurement to schedule our meetings, catch flights, and essentially organize all of modern civilization.
It's just there in the background.
Right.
Yeah.
It is something we observe, not something we actually participate in.
But stepping into the world of Eastern philosophy,
Yeah.
specifically the core cosmological teachings we're unpacking today, it kind of completely shatters that digital clock.
Oh, totally.
It requires a fundamental rewiring of how you perceive reality. I mean, we're looking at a system where time is not just some passive measurement ticking away on a screen.
Yeah, to truly grasp the worldview presented in our sources today, you have to temporarily, just discard that modern, purely physical, detached lens through which we view the universe.
Right, throw it out.
Pretty much. You have to embrace a paradigm where celestial bodies, human affairs, and the invisible flow of time are mechanically and physically intertwined.
Welcome to this deep dive. Today, our mission is to explore the really profound philosophical connections between heaven, earth, time, and humanity. And we have a fascinating stack of sources to guide you through this today.
We really do.
Primarily, we are working with a very detailed transcript of a lecture outlining the core teachings of Daisen Jinrikyo. And this focuses heavily on cosmic origins, yin-yang, and the five elements.
Which can get pretty dense, honestly.
Right, it can. So to ground these ancient concepts, we are heavily supplementing the text with some modern academic context from researcher Choi Won-yuk.
Yes, his work is incredibly helpful here.
It really is. His research explores a sort of three-dimensional interpretation of yin-yang and looks at sustainable, circular economic views in Eastern thought.
The combination of the spiritual text and Choi Won-hyuk's academic framework gives us a really comprehensive lens. I mean, it asks you, the listener, to consider a universe that isn't just a collection of dead rocks floating in a vacuum, but a living, breathing system.
Yeah, if you've ever felt like time is just a number on a screen, this deep dive is going to completely flip your perspective. According to these teachings, time is the actual invisible physical energy that runs the entire cosmos.
It's the fuel.
Exactly. And perhaps the most demanding claim our sources make is that you, meaning human consciousness, you are the essential missing puzzle piece required to make the entire machine work.
Which, it places an immense amount of responsibility on human shoulders. That's a huge contrast to how small we often feel when we're just looking up at the night sky.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because to understand how humans fit into this puzzle, our sources indicate we have to go all the way back to the blueprints.
Back to the very beginning.
Right. We have to look at how this specific universe was built. The lecture transcript describes this origin state where heaven and earth, they didn't exist as separate things at all. They were just one unified, indistinguishable mass.
A state of absolute primordial singularity, and then a really violent separation occurs.
Yeah, the text describes an immense energy referred to as a primordial sound of thunder, or heavenly electricity that just strikes this unified mass.
Which is known as Noazeong in the text.
Yes, Nozeong. And this force, which is commanded by a divine principle the text calls Sangjinim, it literally forces that single entity to split into two distinct realities, which are heaven and earth.
And the text calls this newly split state the two forms, or Yangri, which is the very first ultimate manifestation of yin and yang.
But I want to pause here for a second because the source uses an analogy that initially gave me pause.
Oh, the married couple one.
Yeah. It says that once heaven and earth were split, they began acting like a cosmic married couple. The logic given is that just as a couple must work together to run a household, heaven and earth must cooperate because absolute isolation just cannot exist in this universe.
Right. The concept of lone yin or single yang being a literal impossibility.
Right, but I have to push back on that phrasing a bit. Viewing the unfathomable, infinite universe as a married couple running a household, I mean, does that not feel overly anthropomorphic?
It does sound a bit folksy.
Yeah, it seems almost too folksy for someone approaching this with a modern scientific mindset.
What's fascinating here is that it does sound folksy on the surface, but that analogy is actually a very accessible wrapper for a highly complex mechanical concept.
Okay, how so?
Well, it's known as day-day, or the law of opposition and pairing. The fundamental rule here is that every outside must inherently have an inside.
Oh, I see.
You cannot define a front without a back, and you cannot have a shadow without a light source casting it. So the married couple analogy is simply a human way to express the physics of interdependent existence. And this is exactly where Choi Won-hyuk's academic research becomes crucial.
Let's bring his work in then.
Yeah.
Because his focus is on a 3D interpretation of yin-yang. And, and I think most of us, when we hear yin and yang, we just immediately picture that flat 2D circle.
The black and white swirl logo.
Exactly. We've all seen it on a t-shirt or a poster.
But a flat, two-dimensional logo implies static proximity. It looks like two separate entities just sitting peacefully next to each other on a page. Choi Won-hyuk's research argues that this 2D view fundamentally limits our understanding.
Because it's too passive.
Yes. He emphasizes that yin and yang must be visualized as a dynamic, three-dimensional sphere.
Okay, help me visualize that. How does a 3D sphere change the actual mechanics of yin and yang compared to that flat circle?
Well, think of the Earth itself. You have a solid, incredibly dense inner core, let's call that yin, and you have a volatile, energetic mantle and crust on the outside, let's call that yang.
Right, Geology 101.
Exactly. But they aren't just sitting next to each other. The immense pressure and heat of the core literally dictate the tectonic movements on the crust.
And the crust affects the core in return.
Yes, the cooling of the crust regulates the core. They are actively pushing, pulling, and exchanging energy in this constant spherical tension. I mean, if one were to suddenly disappear, the entire structure wouldn't just be half empty, it would implode.
Oh, wow. So the married couple isn't just a romantic metaphor at all. It is a statement of absolute structural necessity.
Precisely.
Heaven and earth are locked in a 3D spherical tension, and they literally cannot function without each other's continuous input.
The household of the universe would just collapse. That interdependent physics is the absolute foundation of everything that follows in these teachings.
Okay, so if heaven and earth are locked in this constant exchange of energy, the next logical hurdle is coordination.
Right.
Like, how do they know when to push and when to pull? And that brings us to the most critical component of this entire cosmological framework, which is time.
The invisible engine driving the entire exchange.
Yeah, there is an incredibly profound quote from the lecture transcript that sets this up. It states, and I quote, "Heaven and earth without sun and moon are empty shells."
That's a powerful image. I mean, an empty shell has the architecture, it takes up physical space, but it is utterly devoid of life or purpose.
It's just frozen hardware.
Exactly.
So the source explains that the sun and the moon are the ultimate representations of time. But we have to remind ourselves to throw out that digital watch concept again. In this framework, time is not a passive measurement. Time is actual, tangible energy. It is chi.
Which creates a really fascinating divergence between historical Western and Eastern astronomical approaches. The lecture touches on this, and it's so interesting.
Yeah, break that down for us.
Well, Western astronomy has historically been obsessed with the hardware of the cosmos.
Right, like calculating the exact mass of a gas giant, or, measuring the physical light years between our solar system and the Andromeda Galaxy.
Exactly. It focuses heavily on physical matter and spatial distance. But the Eastern astronomical tradition, at least as described in these core teachings, is much more concerned with the software.
The software running the hardware.
Yes. It studies the invisible energy, the active flow of time that operates behind all those celestial bodies. The stars and planets are almost secondary to the invisible energy governing their movements.
The source highlighted a linguistic connection here that completely stopped me in my tracks.
The etymology part.
Yes. It connects the words cosmos and cosmetics.
I love this part. The etymological root is identical.
Right. Cosmos translates to the universe or order, and cosmetics refers to makeup or decoration. And understand this, I was thinking about a really high-end mechanical analog watch.
Okay.
If you take the back off a luxury watch, the inside is just this chaotic blur of gears, springs, and kinetic tension. The internal tension is the invisible order, is the actual passing of time.
But you can't just stare at a spinning gear and know what time it is.
Exactly. You need a way to interface with it.
You need a display.
Yes, so we attach a decorated face to it. We paint 12 numbers in a circle and add little gold hands that move around. The watch face is the makeup. It is the cosmetics.
That's a perfect analogy.
According to this philosophy, the stars, The planets and the constellations are quite literally the universe's cosmetics. They are decorations placed in the sky solely so we can see the invisible software of time.
The watch analogy really perfectly illustrates why the cosmos needs cosmetics. And the specific software that time is running is a principle called
Huh?
yes, which translates to the law of circulation.
Okay, wait, so how does circulation differ from the opposition we talked about earlier with that 3D sphere?
Good question. If the 3D sphere is the structure of the tension, Yu-Hang is how that tension actually moves forward through time.
Oh, I see.
It dictates that energy cannot remain static. Yin eventually and inevitably builds up enough pressure to become yang, and yang eventually cools or condenses back into yin. The text provides a very relatable human example of this circulation by looking at how we age.
Oh, right, the example of middle-aged men and women.
Yeah, according to this cosmological framework, a younger man is physically yang on the outside, perhaps more physically aggressive or outwardly energetic, but he holds a core of yin on the inside.
And a younger woman.
A younger woman is physically yin on the outside but holds a core of yang on the inside. But as they move through the cycles of time, into their middle and later years, the law of circulation forces that internal energy outward.
So a middle-aged man begins to manifest his inner yin. He might become more emotionally expressive, nurturing, or gentle. And a middle-aged woman begins to manifest her inner yang, often becoming more outwardly assertive, dominant, or community-focused.
Exactly. The energy is always circulating. Time is the physical moving force that compels that change. Without time actively pushing the gears, the universe is just a static, frozen snapshot. It just remains an empty shell.
Okay, so if time is this active software forcing circulation, how is it practically managed on a universal scale? Because if heaven and earth are a cooperative household, they must have a distinct division of labor to keep the schedule running, right?
Oh, absolutely. The text lays out the division of labor with incredible specificity. Heaven is the manager of the schedule.
Okay.
Heaven's domain is time, and its primary tool for broadcasting that schedule is the 28 constellations in the night sky.
And Earth is responsible for the actual physical execution of that schedule. Earth takes the broadcast and does all the heavy lifting, making seeds germinate, causing rivers to thaw, bringing crops to yield.
Right.
And Earth's operational tool is the 24 solar terms, which are basically the specific micro-seasons of the year.
So heaven dictates the when, and Earth executes the what.
The text uses the Big Dipper as the prime example of this interface. I found this fascinating. The Big Dipper is literally described as the clock hand of the universe.
It really is.
Its handle sweeps across the night sky, pointing to different sectors of the 28 constellations throughout the year. And that visibly indicates to Earth which of the 24 solar terms should be activated.
It acts as a giant cosmic timepiece, broadcasting the software of time down to the hardware of the planet.
But, standing on the ground thousands of years ago, just seeing stars move doesn't automatically mean you know how to grow wheat.
No, definitely not.
Which brings us to a historical figure the source really emphasizes. King Yao. The text explains that before King Yao, humanity was largely at the mercy of the elements. People were just foraging, reacting to the weather rather than anticipating it, and frequently starving during harsh winters.
They were just surviving the environment, not harmonizing with it.
Right. So King Yao's massive contribution was decoding the law of the sun and moon. He observed the handle of the Big Dipper, mapped its relationship to those 28 constellations, and then translated that celestial movement into a predictable terrestrial calendar.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the text describes this breakthrough as connecting heaven's grace with Earth's logic.
Now that phrase sounds deeply poetic, but what are the actual mechanics behind it? How does translating a star map equate to grace and logic?
Well, Earth's logic is the biological reality that a seed needs specific soil temperatures and moisture to sprout. But a seed doesn't know when winter is actually ending.
Right, it's just a seed.
Exactly. Before King Yao, humans only interacted with Earth's logic, mostly relying on guesswork. Heaven's grace is the predictable schedule of time. By mapping the stars, Yao allowed humanity to actually anticipate the schedule.
So they weren't just guessing anymore.
No. They could predict the last frost, anticipate the monsoon, and plant seeds at the exact moment Earth's logic was primed by heaven's schedule.
Which is the birth of agriculture.
It is. And this is where Choi Won-yuk's research on circular economic views intersects beautifully.
Oh,
Because King Yao didn't just invent farming, He essentially established the original sustainable circular system. By aligning human labor with the 24 solar terms, humanity synced its consumption and production with the regenerative cycles of the planet.
They learned to ride the wheel of Yuhang rather than fighting against it.
Exactly. It was a massive evolutionary leap in human consciousness.
So, heaven sets the schedule with the constellations, Earth does the biological heavy lifting with the seasons, and humans use the calendar to plant crops and survive. I mean, it sounds like a perfectly complete, self-sustaining loop.
It does.
But here's where it gets really interesting. The teachings introduce a massive twist right here.
Yeah. The system, as elegant as it is fundamentally broken without a conscious third party.
Let's look at the second half of that quote we discussed earlier. The first half was, "Heaven and earth without sun and moon are empty shells." But the source reveals the full thought, and it ends with, "And sun and moon without those who know them are empty shadows."
Empty shadows. It's a haunting image.
Think about the weight of that.
Yeah.
The teachings insist that without humans, without conscious beings actively recognizing, decoding, and utilizing the flow of time, the universe's entire mechanical effort is just a lonely, pointless performance.
Yes.
It is a shadow play happening in a theater with absolutely no audience.
It completely centers human consciousness as an absolute cosmological requirement.
My immediate question when reading that was, well, why humans? Why aren't old-growth forests or ocean currents or the stars themselves sufficient to validate the universe?
Right, why us?
The text argues it's because humans are the only beings that uniquely possess both spirit and flesh.
Which ties us directly back to the 3D interpretation of yin and yang.
Because we are the ultimate, walking embodiment of that 3D tension. We have a physical foot grounded in Earth's logic, our flesh, our need for food and warmth. And we have a spiritual foot reaching into heaven's grace, our consciousness, our ability to comprehend time, and the cosmos.
And because we contain both the spiritual and the physical, the text claims that a human who fully masters the balance of yin and yang achieves a level of capability that even spirits and gods cannot match.
Wait, really?
Even gods.
Yes, because spirits lack the physical anchor to actually enact change on Earth. They don't have the flesh.
Oh, that makes sense. The teachings use a very specific and kind of fascinating symbol to represent the mastery of this concept, the white cow. The text states that merging with the white cow is the ultimate alignment with time. I have to admit, this one really tripped me up. Why a cow, and why specifically a white one?
To understand the white cow, we have to look at the 5 elements, which is another core pillar of these teachings. In the 5-element system, colors correspond to specific energies, seasons, and materials. The color white corresponds to the element of metal. Metal is associated with the west, and crucially, it is associated with the season of autumn.
And autumn is the season of the harvest.
Yes. Now, the cow is universally understood as a beast of burden. It represents labor, endurance, and the tilling of the earth. So a white cow is the labor of the autumn harvest.
Ah, I see.
Right. So merging with the white cow symbolizes a human being who has perfectly mastered the cycles of time, recognized the exact moment of the cosmic harvest, and is doing the necessary labor to bring it in. It's all about becoming an active, conscious participant in the universe's ultimate maturation cycle.
That completely demystifies it. It isn't just a random animal. It's a highly specific code for aligning human labor with cosmic timing.
Exactly.
And that brings us to what the text calls the ultimate human duty, which is Zhengzhilinsa. We aren't supposed to just sit back, meditate, and know about heaven and earth like we're passive observers.
No, the specific mandate is to observe and manage human affairs. The text refers to this as grasping heaven's power and gathering earth's energy.
Grasping heaven's power and gathering earth's energy. Sangak Qianwan Hasabjigi. In practical terms, based on everything we've unpacked, that means humans are required to grab hold of the cosmic schedule, gather the physical resources of the planet, and actively harmonize them through our daily actions and systems.
And this raises an important question about how we view our purpose today, because this worldview challenges a very pervasive modern sentiment. Today, we are often taught a model of existential dread. That we are random, insignificant specks of biological matter on a damp rock, just spinning through an indifferent, infinite void.
Yeah, it can feel incredibly isolating.
But in the philosophy we are exploring today, your existence is the furthest thing from an accident. It is an absolute cosmic duty. You are not a mere observer looking out the window of a spaceship. You are the essential operator.
The one driving it.
Right. The engine of heaven and earth is running, the fuel of time is pumping, but humanity is meant to be the driver. Without us actively participating and harmonizing those energies, the universe is just spinning its wheels in the dark.
That is an incredibly empowering, yet heavy, responsibility to place on humanity. Let's take a breath and just summarize the journey we've just been on for you, the listener.
It is a profound amount of information to synthesize all at once.
It really is. We started with the explosive, thunderous splitting of an undivided universe into the ultimate 3D tension of heaven and earth. Then we discovered that time isn't just a digital measurement, but the invisible physical software running the law of circulation.
Right.
We learned that the constellations and planets are just the cosmic makeup the watch face put there so we can actually read that invisible software. And finally, we realized that without your conscious observation and labor, the entire universe is reduced to an empty shadow.
Moving from the primordial big split all the way down to the absolute necessity of daily human consciousness.
So what does this all mean for us today, bringing this back to our daily lives? How do we actually apply this?
I think we have to look closely at Choi Won-hyuk's focus on circular, sustainable systems. The entire cosmological framework we discussed, the circulation of energy, the solar terms, the harmony of heaven and earth, is a massive, perfect circular economy.
Yeah.
And humanity's fundamental duty is to recognize those cycles of time and align our consumption and production with them.
Which is exactly what King Yao achieved.
Right. But we have to ask what happens to the universe when we abandon that duty. Look at the modern reality we have constructed today.
It's totally disconnected.
Completely. We live in a state of 247 digital connectivity that just completely ignores the natural cycle of rest. We have built cities with so much artificial light pollution that it entirely obliterates the 28 constellations from our view.
We can't even see the cosmic clock anymore.
No, we can't.
Yeah.
And we demand instant gratification, out-of-season produce, next-day shipping. We've severed our connection to the 24 solar terms.
We have basically built a totally artificial habitat that ignores the white cow, the natural timing of the harvest entirely. We've just stopped looking at the clock.
We have. So here's a final thought for you to explore on your own. If these teachings are correct, and time, without human awareness, is nothing but an empty shadow, well, by refusing to look up, by aggressively disconnecting our modern lives from the natural rhythms of the earth and the sky,
Yeah.
are we currently turning the universe's grand, orderly cosmos back into a shadow play simply because we refuse to acknowledge the clock?
Usually when we talk about time, we expect the precision of a digital alarm clock. But perhaps true precision isn't found in a microchip, but in our willingness to step outside, observe the turning of the seasons, and realize we are the ones required to keep the universe awake.